Hello, everybody, and welcome. You're watching Midday Report here on TVP World. EU leaders are meeting in Brussels today for a high-stakes talks on the bloc's future, with Ukraine funding topping the agenda as U.S. support wanes. From frozen Russian assets to defense strategy and enlargement, the summit could redefine Europe's security and economic priorities. Now we're joined live from Brussels by our correspondent Angela Skujins. Good afternoon, Angela. It's literally a do-or-die situation for the Ukrainians right now, and it's in the hands of Europe. Viktor Orban won't agree to use Russian frozen assets to loan Kyiv. So what's the plan, and what happens if an agreement can't be reached?
Good afternoon, Don. So yes, we've heard from various EU leaders such as the High Representative Kaja Kallas, European Council President Antonio Costa and others that they will not leave this European Council meeting until a decision is taken, figuring out the way of supporting Ukraine, giving that war-torn country in the north at least a third of its funding requirements from 2026 to 2027. There are two major options on the table. First is joint borrowing, so using some of the money from the long-term budget. However, we know the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban refutes this method. The second, more controversial option is giving Ukraine a loan based off the immobilized Russian state assets currently held at the Belgian financial institution Euroclear. This could be 90 billion euros at least, or up to 210 billion euros. That is the amount currently held in Belgium. We just got out of a press conference delivered by the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, in which he agreed to the assessment made by the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk on his way into this meeting this morning, that this is a major existential question facing those 27 heads of state today.
Now we have a simple choice: either money today or blood tomorrow. And I am not talking about Ukraine only, I am talking about Europe. And this is our decision to make, and only ours. I think all European leaders have to finally rise to this occasion.
Somber words there from the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Zelenskyy, however, responding to a question asked by my colleague Alex Carrier from TVP World, stating that he understood the concerns from the Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever, who spoke to Belgian Parliament earlier today, stating that his anxieties have not been allayed right now regarding the legal proposal that's on the table.
To be clear, I have yet to see a text that meets with my approval and that would be acceptable to Belgium. I have not seen one yet. I hope to see it today.
What we're hearing in the corridors of power right now from our own diplomatic sources is that the conversation currently is at a standstill. Belgium is no way closer to approving the reparations loan. If the Belgian Prime Minister does get the requirements that he wants from his European partners, then he could shift the dial forward, approve this measure. We don't need the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban to approve this. This is a qualified majority vote, so 15 out of the 27 here hold the key to giving Ukraine the money it needs. The bigger question is whether Europe can have the unity to do this and give Ukraine that cash to keep repelling Russian aggression, and whether the United States President Donald Trump is watching this and whether he can potentially match support from his side of the Atlantic.
Indeed. Well, we'll be crossing our fingers that they get over the line with those measures. Angela Skujins reporting from Brussels. They are free from political oppression and imprisonment by the Belarusian regime. 90 of the 123 political prisoners released as part of a U.S. brokered deal arrived in Poland's capital, Warsaw, overnight. It was an emotional reunion of loved ones and colleagues.
Finally free, finally reunited. Emotional scenes played out in the Polish capital Warsaw overnight as 90 of 123 released Belarusian prisoners were embraced by relatives, friends and fellow activists. Among them was leading opposition figure Maria Kolesnikova, embraced upon arrival by her sister, and Viktor Babaryka, a banker who intended to run for presidential office in 2020, but was arrested right before the elections. Pavel Latushka from the United Transitional Cabinet of Belarus, headed by Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, greeted those returning after years of isolation.
An emotional day, of course. 123 people, political prisoners in Belarus jailed by the dictator, have been released. Freedom is always a good thing, isn't it? We are praying for all those still in prison. At least 1,150 people remain in the prisons of Lukashenko's regime. Lukashenko deports people, breaks the law, stripping them of their documents, and now they are in a difficult situation. It's important that we all support them together and keep fighting for everyone's freedom.
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko freed the prisoners on December the 13th in a deal brokered by the US President Donald Trump's envoy, John Cole. Among those released was 2022 Nobel Prize laureate Ales Bialyatski, arrested amid a crackdown on opposition in 2021. Limited sanctions relief was granted to 3 Belarusian potash companies following the release, while the European Union broadened its sanctions to include the regime's hybrid warfare efforts. Many still remain jailed, such as Polish-Belarusian journalist Andrzej Poczobut, who was recently awarded the 2025 Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought, presented to him absentia and accepted by his daughter.
Poland's Patriot missile defense system is now fully operational, a major boost to the nation's air and missile shield. The announcement came Thursday at the 3rd Air Defense Missile Base in Sochaczew, central Poland.
Poland announced that its Patriot missile defense system has achieved full operational readiness, marking a key step in strengthening the country's air and missile shield. The announcement came on Thursday in Sochaczew in central Poland at the base of the 3rd Air Defense Missile Brigade, home to one of the core components of the country's new integrated defense architecture. The system brings together multiple layers of defense into a single command structure.
This is the moment we have been waiting for years, conducting analysis, signing contracts, and then implementing the Wisła medium-range air defense program. We now have an integrated defense system with multiple layers.
The minister stressed that air defense has become one of the most demanding and costly elements of modern security, especially as wars increasingly rely on cheap drones and missiles to overwhelm defenses.
This shows how we are developing Poland's defense capabilities. This is their most expensive component. The cost of defending against drones and missiles is more than 10 times higher than the cost of launching them.
US Ambassador to Poland Thomas Rose, who attended the ceremony, said the deployment places Poland among global leaders in integrated air defense and sends a clear signal to both allies and adversaries.
Today, Poland takes the lead. Poland, even America doesn't have an IBCS like this. So Poland's enemies are seeing this, Poland sees this, the American people see this.
Warsaw plans to expand the system further with dozens of additional Patriot launchers expected later this decade.
And we will go live to the press conference of NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz at the 3rd Air Defense Missile Base in Sochaczew, Poland, as soon as it begins, so stay with us here on TVP World. The Kremlin has long exploited vulnerable Ukrainians for its war effort, long before its hybrid tactics spread across Europe. Behind the walls of Lubyankivka, the remand center, around 200 Ukrainian teenagers await trial, accused of treason for aiding Russia's war. Kremlin recruiters lure them online with quick cash, turning simple favors into acts of sabotage.
Locked up in Kyiv's Lubyanivka remand center, around 200 Ukrainian teenagers are behind bars here, accused of treason for aiding Russia's war. Sasha is one of them. He was recruited online by Russian security services after fleeing his bombed-out home city to finish school in Odessa.
I wasn't really making any money and this offer came up. I wasn't really thinking, so I agreed to it. I sent coordinates that I took off the internet. I didn't think it was illegal because the information was available in open sources.
Kremlin agents offer quick money for what starts out as simple favors and quickly escalates into more serious crimes. It's becoming a significant problem.
In September, 2 students from a school in the Lviv region were apprehended, both of them minors. They were trying to blow up a house where a member of the military and his family lived. They had been hired by the Russian security forces through Telegram channels, which is very common right now.
Ukraine's security forces are hitting back at Russia's ruthless exploitation of teenagers. They're warning youngsters about the perils of recruitment and performing acts that will damage Ukraine.
It was a good video they showed us and very good information. It will be useful. We have to make sure we're not being used by the enemy and inform security services.
Ukraine's Deputy Justice Minister said sabotage is a grave crime.
If it is done during the wartime, it even more grave becomes. Of course, kids, they don't know it. So they don't have higher education in law. They don't have a law degree to understand that. They realize it only when they arrive to the detention center, that it's a serious problem.
Of 800 people arrested by Ukrainian security forces for sabotage, about a third are underage. The youngest is only 11 years old. Sasha says he deeply regrets his actions and warns teenagers to consult adults when they receive online offers for assistance.
Poland plans to quit dirty coal by the year 2040 under a new energy strategy, replacing it with renewables and nuclear power. The shift promises cleaner energy and nearly 20% lower electricity costs. Here's more.
This inconspicuous town in northern Poland is at the very center of the country's ongoing energy revolution. Next to it, on a construction site hidden deep in the forest, preparations are underway for the very first Polish nuclear power station, planned to go online in 2038. But even though the plant itself will cost 45 billion euros, it's only a small part of a bigger plan.
In 2040, the Polish energy mix will be comprised of 3 pillars: renewables, nuclear energy, and energy storage solutions.
The government envisions renewables supplying around 2/3 of electricity in Poland in 2040, up from less than a fifth in 2020. And under the ambitious scenario, the share of coal, both in electricity and heat generation, will drop to 0 by 2040, ending the country's reliance on the dirtiest of fuels. The total cost of this revolution, between 640 and 830 billion euros.
That's more than $1 trillion directed to do one thing: strengthen the Polish economy. There is no other area in our country with a similar drive in investments.
But by the reckoning of the government, these huge investments will ultimately lead to savings.
We forecast that the cost of energy production may even drop by up to 18%, and cheaper energy equals greater competitiveness of the Polish economy on the global stage.
Under the roadmap, nuclear energy will cover around 1/8 of Poland's electricity supply in 2040, meaning that the country will need more than the single nuclear power station currently under construction in the north. But the specifics will have to wait until 2026, when the updated nuclear strategy is expected to be completed.
And we are still waiting on the press conference with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz that's taking place at the 3rd Air Defense Missile Base in Sohachev. So stay with us. But for now, that's all the time we have here on Midday Report. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.